Okay, welcome everyone to the last session of day 2, before the event wrap up at least. This is user experience design for AR, and so this will be very exciting. I happen to know one of the speakers and know of another, and so I look forward to learning about the third. So started off is Becker from Samsung, who is going to share with us his experiences with user experience design for AR.
Cool. So, hey everybody, welcome to the, I like to think of this as the closing nano keynote of the conference. I'm Gene Becker. I do work at Samsung, although my talk is actually not about my work at Samsung. So it's my affiliation, but I'm going to talk about other stuff. It's mostly my opinions about experience design in AR, having worked in the field and worked in ubiquitous computing for a while. Got some thoughts that I wanted to share with you. Okay, so we talked about this notion that the world is a platform, right? I mean, that was kind of the rebranding of ARE into the augmented world thing, right? So this is kind of what our platform looks like, right? It's this incredible confluence of technologies that are merging across an entire array of fields, right? Everything from, sort of nanotech in terms of sensors, accelerometers, and so forth, to smart thermostats, to flexible displays, to obviously machine vision, contextual awareness. I mean, it's actually an explosion of technology, unprecedented in my life anyway. And I guess you could say, yeah, this is sort of, but it's really kind of a collection. So when we talk about platforms, in technology, we usually have to make like a little layer cake. So here's a very rough layer cake to think about it differently. At the bottom, we've got kind of the physical layer of the platform, which includes, a ton of different devices these days, like phones and tablets, and now wearables and sensors, but also robots, embedded systems, the physical space around us, because the world is definitely, instantiated as physical space, and people and places and things in the world, and the natural environment, the built environment. I think it's gotten so broad, right? But when I think people talk about the world as platform, that's, they're referring to a lot of this stuff. And in that space, we have a lot of new ways to interact beyond just the standard mouse and touch paradigms. We've got emerging things, obviously depth order. We've got context awareness, behavior modeling. We've got probabilistic understanding of user behavior. There's predictive and even autonomous interfaces at this point. So that's all getting kind of crazy and interesting. And also in the world, we have a lot of new actors, right? I think in the past, computing has very much been kind of an individual sport. Obviously, we have social networking and we have multiple computing, but there's always been kind of this one-to-one relationship between people and computers. And that's changing not only in terms of the number of things in the world, but also the number of actors that are involved here. And they're not just human actors in various combinations, but they're also, these new actors like drones and robots, and even maybe the emergent phenomena that come out of crowds and combinations with devices and services actually start to have some sense of agency in themselves. And then, of course, any platform worth its salt needs to be programmed, and so we have the usual SDKs, we have apps, we have APIs, but we also have kind of these interesting new things coming up, like event rule systems and machine learning, where in some sense we're seeing systems starting to program themselves in a way. And at the top of it all, we have kind of what all the people who are trying to create cool stuff are doing. So, come on. But if you look at it, I mean, it's platforms all the way down, right? Because even at the level of devices, all these different fitness wearables, why things scales and Fitbits and fuel bands, every one of those things is designed as a platform. And if you look inside, there's software platforms and there's processor platforms. And so, it's a complicated stack of stuff. So when we think about the world as platform, that's actually, we're biting off a lot, right? This is an example of programming the world as platform, right? Everybody here familiar with if this, then that, right? Actually, very cool sort of user programmable web service where you can hook up things with other things on the web through open APIs and kind of do, if something on this thing happens, then do that. Okay, and what you've got here is you've got things that are starting to become very physical. You've got why things scales that are saying, log my weight to my up service, right? The Belkin Wemo, which is basically like a connected motion sensor. So, if somebody moves in my house, post it to Facebook. The new Philips Hue light, which is an internet-controlled light. It's actually a beautiful product. I hope it comes down in price so I can buy a couple. But, it's like, if you could take your scrabbled album cover and use that to change the color of lighting in your house, well, that's like new, that's cool, right? And that's a kind of programming we haven't had before. And that is part of what happens on this world as platform, right? Yeah. I don't know about the zombie outbreak thing. The CDC, they're a reliable source, so presumably they know what they're doing. There's also this other cool thing called Atuma, which is the same sort of thing, but it's basically an Android application runs on your phone, and it accesses some of the more detailed subsystems on the phone, like you can look at battery levels and internet connectivity and time and Bluetooth and so on, and you can do things like take photos, launch apps, turn off subsystems, send alerts and notifications. So it's a very sort of fine-grained device-level user programming model. I wish that talked to end to if, because that would be kind of cool. But these things are emerging, and they're kind of new ideas, which I think are exciting. There's also this area of context awareness. And, we all talk about context awareness as, we know what you're doing, we know what time it is, we know where you are, we know, all these things, and we're going to make judgments about what we should then do on your behalf. And that's Google Now and systems like that. But, contextual systems are actually a pretty deep topic. And what this is essentially kind of an upward sweep looking at levels of contextual abstraction. At the lowest level, you've got sensors that are generating raw data. And then from there, you do physical recognition. So let's say we're talking about, detecting a person running. Well, the raw data is just like the signals that are coming off the accelerometers. Physical recognition is detecting a pattern that's a signature of a person running. Entity or activity identification is how translating that pattern to a label called running that a computer then says, okay, I've got a text string called running. It doesn't know what running means, but it knows it's there. Grouping and clustering these things, so you can say, well, I'm running over a period of time and space. Then there's a big leap up to what I think of as semantic awareness, which is when you start to actually know what running means, which computers mostly don't, but I'm wondering about Google sometimes. And then even further up the stack, you have the human notion of, what's my intention? Why am I running? I'm running to lose weight, to evade a predator, whatever it is, right? And then finally, what does that engagement actually result in terms of an internal mental state? What's my feeling about it? What's the emotion? So context, taken broadly is a very rich topic. We're seeing a lot of work to try and make this stuff more machine readable. And so I kind of have this notion of a line of contextual abstraction boundary, and below which things are machine readable. So machines can definitely read data, and they can start to sense patterns, and they can apply labels. But above it, things are human readable, right? And I think the work that a lot of folks in this conference and elsewhere are doing is trying to push that boundary further up so that machines can take part in more of the human context, which is sort of an interesting concept. And up here kind of at the top right is the domain of experience design, right? And this is where machines don't go. This is where humans and designers do go. And this, I would submit to you, is one of the places where AR and the world as platform is really sorely lacking. We've got lots of people pushing the boundary. We don't have very much going on in terms of true user experience that creates emotion and feeling and effect on people in a positive or lasting way. So, the world is a platform, so now what? I'm going to make a suggestion. Let's don't be a prosthesis. So what do we mean by that? So we talk about things like Google Glass and other sorts of technology as being prostheses for our mind, as a way of extending our capabilities, extending the human. But I think it's actually interesting to think about this in a way that's kind of reversed, right? In a way, if we start adopting these technologies, we're almost becoming a prosthesis for the computer as it learns more and more. And that's not really a good trend, because that's not about human experience. So I suggest that we not only focus on all these technologies like machine vision, like giving computers spatial awareness, like worrying about context awareness, all these things that I would consider as like robot experience design. Okay, that's all well and good, but we actually need to balance this. And we need to balance this with a sense of designing for human experience. If you think about it, digital technologies have a certain set of characteristics, right? I mean, they're binary, of course, by definition. They tend to be precise. It's things that can be counted. It's things that can be measured. It's things that can be on and off. It's things that can be stored persistently and searched. So there are a set of, characteristics of the digital enterprise that, show up as part of how they express in products today. Today you get error messages that are cryptic on your device because it's a digital device. Things pop up and you go, wow, what happened? I don't know. It's a computer, right? It's a thing. But when that starts happening in the physical plus digital world that we all live in, that's kind of more of a concern, right? And as humans, of course, we have other characteristics, right? We're fuzzy. We're not so precise necessarily. We have emotions. We have feelings. We're not consistent. We forget. And those human characteristics that I think we all understand are important, but maybe also take for granted because we're adults, are the things that are not getting designed into the systems and therefore not getting designed into the world today. So, fundamentally, my statement here is we need to counterbalance this and we need to make the world more humane, not just make it more machine readable. Okay, so what's the answer? How you do that? Well, that's definitely a work in progress, and that's a big challenge. But here are some of the things. It's interesting. I've done some research in this area. There's actually not a lot of models out there for human experience. It's like, what constitutes a good experience for people? And so we need some models. Okay, some of this is derived from some very early studies that were done by colleagues of mine at HP Labs, looking at user experience for pervasive computing. So it's kind of in the world physical computing experiences. Things that people actually like about those things in their research were the challenge, both physical and mental, of completing a task or getting into a flow state. Obviously, self-expression and creativity is a big part of it, but also the social aspects, both sharing, cooperation, as well as competition head-to-head, can create really good, powerful experiences for people. The notion of sensation, physical sensations, as well as the stimulation of emotions and your imagination. And then the last one, which wasn't in their research, but I think increasingly becomes important for us, which is we need actually a model for trust and transparency in a world full of digital computing. Transparency meaning when something happens due to some automated system, it would be good if we could actually know why, right? If something is going to happen as a consequence of us moving through the world physically, like if we pass by a camera across some unseen boundary, it would be good to know what our actions actually imply in the digital system that's integrated with that space. So this notion of transparency is a big deal. It's also going to be a hard problem because that's not something that's wired into the way that people create systems, right? And the final thing is respect, and maybe the simplest example of that is Google Glass, really cool technology. I love the idea of heads-up, hands-free computing, but they didn't really think about what it meant to other people. Maybe they did. I should give Google credit. They do think about a lot of stuff, but fundamentally it's a very sort of one-to-one, individually focused model, and there's not that respect for the other people around you that is built into the model of what glass is. So need more of that. So that's it for me. Let's not just augment humans, let's do this other thing too about humanity. Okay, so, and now, sorry, unless
Well, yeah.